I'd like to say to all of the young innovators,
Black Lives Matter.
Could nonviolent action be used against ISIS?
You can be a part of the biggest scientific discoveries of our time.
I have been a social justice, social change advocate for over 35 years. And when I was invited to come here and talk to you today on the topic of revolutions, the first thing that came to mind for me was, how do you stay engaged in revolution for 35 years? How do you get through the ups and the downs and the challenges and disappointments? Well, part of how I do that is here on the screen today. You're seeing 3 generations of my family. You're seeing my father's mother, Roberta, in the center there, my mother's mother, Minnie Bell, my mom in the white with my aunties, and then you're seeing my beloved ones, my grandsons, Theodore and Anthony. And they're part of how I sustain bravery during times of difficulty, because I come from resilient people, and you come from resilient people too. It is our families and our resiliency that sustains us at the core. So courage. 2016 was a difficult year for me. If 2016 had some challenges for you, raise your hand, right? It had some challenges, right? And it called for our courage. And courage is defined as action in the face of fear or in the face of deep and profound grief. But what kind of action? What kind of action are we actually called to do? What kind of courage are we called to bring forth into the world when challenges and difficulties face us? And one of the things that I have had the privilege of experiencing as a domestic violence advocate is that I have had the opportunity to sit with some of the bravest, most courageous people that I know. Sitting with survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault and watching the day-to-day courage that they bring forth in the world is a profound honor. And it's not like this heroic courage, like the courage that we see on television. This is the profound courage that it takes to move through every single day when your body has been broken, when your faith in the world has been challenged, when every single little thing feels like a huge endeavor. That's the kind of courage that I want to talk about today. The kind of courage that gets us through the dark night when nothing else seems possible. So let's talk about that kind of courage. So this is Rosa Parks, and she is my hero, and she is my mentor and my role model for courageous vision. And this is my favorite photograph of Rosa. And I don't think this would be everyone's favorite photograph of Rosa, right? This is Rosa Parks after she had been arrested for her participation in the bus boycotts of 1955. What I like about this picture is that Rosa does not look afraid. We're not seeing a picture of fear on her face, even though I'm sure it is a terrifying experience to be arrested. And she doesn't look humiliated. You aren't seeing humiliation in Rosa's eyes, even though it is profoundly humiliating to live through segregation and to live through that level of oppression and to have to navigate that level of hatred. But no, Rosa's not looking afraid or humiliated. Rosa is looking forward with her courageous vision, and she's looking through the difficulty of her current circumstances, and she's looking straight out through it to me. Right? She's looking through to a time when a Black woman can be an activist without being arrested. Well, not always being arrested, or not often being arrested, but she's looking forward to a time when I can sit where I want to sit, be who I want to be, create a world of equity and inclusion and fairness and dignity for all people. And it's that kind of courageous vision and that rising up and seeing the future, fearlessly seeing the future, that inspires me about Rosa. So thank you, Rosa. So courageous storytelling. This is Audre Lorde. And Audre is a storyteller. But more than that, Audre is a truth teller. Audre is a visionary with her words. Audre told story when her words were not welcomed. And not only were her words not welcomed, they were profoundly resisted at the time. Audre is a Black woman, lesbian, feminist, artist and writer at a time when being all of those things was absolutely resisted. Audrey says, "When we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard or welcomed. But when we are silent, we are still afraid. So it is better to speak." And when Audrey told her truth and told her story of vulnerability and her demand for dignity, she transformed the world, and not just for Black, lesbian, feminist writers and women, but for all people who feared their voices might not be heard. And that kind of courageous storytelling, we thank her for it. Thank you. This is Bonnie Bondanach, and she is a current teacher of mine. And Bonnie is a therapist, and she's a thought leader in the field of neurobiology of trauma. And Bonnie has taught me a profound lesson about courageous engagement, because one of the things that Bonnie has taught is that we're all connected. We're all connected to one another. And that when we decide that somebody is other, we break that bond of community, and we totally disrupt our capacity for social justice and social change and for profound healing. When we step back, circle our wagons, and resist because we are wounded or afraid, and we know what that feels like this year, right? That desire to put your head in the sand, to not be part of it, to circle the wagons. But no, what she says in this "we are wounded in and healed in community" is that we rise or we fall together. It happens in community, that we have to be in this and we have to engage and to never other anyone, even when their ideas can feel most disturbing. Courageous engagement is staying connected, staying engaged, staying with those that can often feel very scary. And I think it's a profound act of courage to stay in community when community is hard, right? So I thank Bonnie for that teaching and for the constant practice that I'm going to get over the next year of courageous engagement. So courageous action, at the very core of what we do, is the actions that we take. How do we show up in the world? How do we honor the still, quiet voice inside us that tells us what to do? And one thing that I know is that I can't tell you what your courageous action will be, because your courageous action is born out of your own courage, your own challenge, your own vulnerability, your own deep, profound knowing. For some of you, your courageous action is going to be to see past the current circumstances and the difficulties that we're faced with today, and to see a future where Theodore and Anthony are going to live at a time when equity and fairness and profound dignity is available to all humans throughout the entire world, no matter what, right? For some of us, that's our courageous vision. That's going to be your action. For others, it's to tell that story, that deep story that lives within you, of vulnerability and dignity, and says, this is what is necessary for me and others to live profoundly in this world. For others, it's going to be that courageous engagement, to stay in community with for those who feel like other, to stay connected with them in a good way, with compassion and dignity and openness. And we don't know what our courageous action is going to be. But I'm going to ask you to do a little exercise with me. So just take a minute to close your eyes. We're all family here now, right? So close your eyes, you're in safety, and just take a deep breath. Put your hand on your heart and just listen. Listen to the still, quiet, deep voice within you. That voice that tells you exactly what your courageous action will be. It tells you exactly how you can move through difficulties and challenges in the next year. It tells you exactly how to act on behalf of your community and what kind of courage needs to show up. So just listen. Let your breath settle your body. Let that wise wisdom rise up inside of you. And what I know, beyond all knowing, is that that courageous little voice inside of you will not only sustain you in times of difficulty, it just might change the world. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here.